or ça mouille, which is such a funny word. Ça mouille, which means it's moist, which in Louisiana, it's very humid. You can say, il fait humide en Louisiane, par exemple. Il fait chaud, n'est-ce pas, en Louisiane. So along with weather, you talk about seasons. So this is probably, for those of you who took a little French in high school, things you've already seen. Le printemps, au printemps, l'été, l'automne, hiver. Alors, quelle saison sommes-nous? Nous sommes l'automne. Nous sommes en automne. Automne comprend les mois septembre, octobre, novembre et décembre, c'est déjà un peu l'hiver, en hiver. So if you're a super English speaker, you know that estival means summer. Hibernate is hiver. Hibernate, think about what the bears do in the winter. They hibernate, they hiver, same root. Okay, so speaking of geography, we're going to look at all the different geographical features of France in this chapter. So you have la campagne, the countryside, la ville, une province. So careful with une province versus la Provence. So on your Moodle, you might have noticed that there's a purple looking lavender field. Do you know what I'm talking about? Does it pop up for you? And yep, so that is La Provence. So La Provence is a region of France. It's a region of France that's very famous. That's where Tonio was a second ago. Parce qu'il fait très beau en Provence. Il y a de la lavande en Provence. C'est dans le sud de la France. C'est la Côte d'Azur. So it's this beautiful part of France. So it's easy to get these confused. Une province versus La Provence. Does anybody know what it means to be provincial in English? When we say somebody's so provincial?
Old-fashioned.
Simple, rural.
All that, yep. So in France, there's a very odd view of the world, which is Paris is not provincial and everywhere else is. So when you talk about dans les provinces, it means anywhere that's not Paris. So it is specific to France. France has a very centralized notion of themselves. Paris is the capital. Like the French do not understand our voting system at all because they do things purely on popular vote, right? And how do we elect, since it's the election season, how do we elect our president? How does the president win? Is it because everybody voted for him or her? Nope. So how does that work in the United States?
The
Electoral college.
The Electoral College. So we do not have this idea that Washington, D.C. is the central most important city and the rest of the country is going to follow along Washington's line. This is not the way the United States works, for better or for worse. But it is the way France works. So everything that's not Paris is province. And there is the same connotation as in English, which is provincial. People are old-fashioned or a little more traditional, a little bit more rural, a little bit more, I think that within the English meaning of provincial, narrow-minded. You guys can look that up and tell me. Okay, so la province versus la Provence. Okay, un lac, same word. Un fleuve, donc voici 4 fleuves en France, la Loire, la Garonne, la Saône et la Seine. Quel est le grand fleuve en Louisiane? Nous avons un fleuve énorme.
Mississippi.
Le Mississippi, c'est notre grand fleuve. C'est un des plus grands fleuves du monde. La mer, so that's where the student was a second ago, at la mer Méditerranée. Hard word to spell, 2 accents aigus, 2 R's, 1 N. What a nightmare. L'océan, donc l'océan Atlantique, la côte ouest de France, et on allonge la côte ouest avec l'Atlantique. Entre la France et Angleterre, il y a la Manche. So la manche in French means the sleeve, and they call that the English Channel the sleeve. I don't know why, but la manche is the word for the English Channel, and it means the sleeve. La plage, so the beach. Antonio était à la plage. Il y a les montagnes en Europe. So we would hardly call, although you guys are Louisianans, so what do you know about mountains? The Alps are the real deal. Like, I'm from a mountainous place. Alps are big and pointy with snow and huge, whereas the Jura, in my mind, those are like hills, but they count in France as mountains, as the Pyrénées. So the Jura, c'est à l'est. Les Pyrénées, c'est au sud. So this is another thing we're going to learn. L'est, ouest, nord, sud. Le Massif Central, go figure, the Massif Central is central in the middle of France. Et les Vosges. Les Vosges sont un peu au sud. Donc, les montagnes. Louisianans, have any of you been on a mountain lately? Ever? Yeah? Which ones?
I've been to the Rockies and the Smokies.
Okay, so one of my favorite words in French is that the Rockies in French are called les rocheuses, les rocheuses. And so they were originally French explorers that discovered the Rockies. And so same word, les rocheuses. And what was the other one? The Smokies, like Tennessee and Virginia. Okay. Donc, voici les points cardinaux dans le nord, au nord, dans le sud, au sud, dans l'est, à l'est, dans l'ouest, à l'est, à l'ouest, au centre, sur la côte. Sur la côte. Donc, Bordeaux, la ville de Bordeaux se trouve sur la côte de France. So, France is a hexagon. And I'm going to show you in a PowerPoint what that means. And sometimes it's referred to as l'hexagone. So there's these little French departments that are not in France. Does anybody know where there's a little bit of France that's not in France? It's like Hawaii is a little bit of America, but it's out in the Pacific. So there's one up in Canada that's called Saint-Pierre et Miquelon. It's these tiny little islands. And then there's two little Petites Antilles, Martinique and Guadeloupe in the Caribbean. And so there are departments of France. France is divided up. We're divided into counties. The France, except in Louisiana again, parishes. The French are divided into départements. Région is like a state. A département is a little bit like a county or a parish. So these are régions dans l'hexagone. And you'll see what I mean with France looking like a hexagon in one sec. Alsace, la Bourgogne, la Bretagne, la Côte d'Azur, la Corse. Who's Corsica's most famous historical figure? Oh, my students.
Wait, what did you say?
Who is Corsica's most famous historical figure? He's got a connection with Louisiana. France's most famous man is not really French. Napoleon. Napoleon is Corsican, and in Corsica, they speak a dialect of Italian, but it is a region of France. So Île-de-France is the Parisian region. It's just sometimes called Île-de-France, it's Paris. La Lorraine, la Normandie, la Provence, la Vallée de la Loire. So some of you have been to France besides Marie, right? No? Yeah? Emma, have you been to La Vallée de la Loire? It's where the castles are.
Unfortunately, I have not. I've only been to Paris.
So
I would
lots
love
of,
to explore the countryside, though.
yeah. I mean, it's a toss-up. All of France is beautiful. There's so many things to see. The Vallée de la Loire is where you go to see a real castle, not a Disney castle. They're Castle Central over there. Okay, so we also do lots of this verb aller, which is to go, aller, because naturally you're going places since the chapter is about France and going on vacation there. And there's lots of faire. So along with the weather, il fait beau, il fait chaud, il fait noir, il fait soleil. It's also to do all these activities, which you've already seen because we've talked about it. Well, actually we talked about ER verbs, but it's hard to speak French without emphasizing the importance of the verb faire. So whereas we go biking, we in English have a tendency to take nouns and make them verbs. It's a bike, we bike, right? Does that work that way in German? Because English is super flexible.
Not really.
Not really, yeah. Like English is a really weird language. So I bike, you bike, but we also have a bike. So you can make nouns into verbs. Whereas France, you don't do that. French language does not want you to just verb a noun. So you cannot go, you can't say in French, je bicyclette. You faire de la bicyclette. Tu fais du bateau. Tu faire de la planche à voile. And every French textbook I've ever taught is obsessed with planche à voile. I've never even met a windsurfer. Actually, I've met one. In my entire life, I'm old, I've met one windsurfer and they were not French. Do you guys windsurf? Nope. You do, Marie? I have now met 2 windsurfers. Alors, la planche à voile, faire des randonnées. So randonnée, we hike or go on a hike. En France, on fait des randonnées. On fait du ski, on fait du vélo, on fait de la voile, on fait une promenade, on passe des vacances, on visite. So notice, you visite un lieu, not a person. So in French, you cannot visite, je peux pas te visiter, on rend visite à quelqu'un, so that comes up later. But you can visiter une cathédrale, un château, une exposition, un monument, un musée, voilà. Voyager à l'étranger. So what is the verb, the noun l'étranger? What does it look like in English? Étranger.
Stranger.
It sure does, right. And what does it mean? It does mean stranger too. It strangely does mean stranger, but it also means this other thing, which is what? What does abroad mean?
Away.
Yep. To be away in a country that's not your own, you go abroad. So yeah, it's a little bit embedded xenophobia, fear of the stranger in their word for being away, à l'étranger. Donc on voyage à l'étranger. Et voici beaucoup de langage qui est lié au transport. Comment voyagez-vous? Je voyage en avion, en bateau, en train, en car. Car does not mean car. Car means in a big bus, like a touring bus, like a kind of like a Greyhound bus. Vous avez une voiture. So in Louisiana, as in Canada, voiture is not really a word. It's un char. Think chariot. So in Louisiana, the word for a car is un char. It's just an old-fashioned word that in France it's turned into a voiture, and we use char as they do in Canada. Comment allez-vous? So this is not how are you doing, this is how do you get places. Comment allez-vous à l'université? Chez vos parents, au travail. So Americans, what do? We go en voiture a lot. Est-ce que quelqu'un est venu en vélo? Did anybody bike to school? Non. Incroyable. Est-ce que quelqu'un est venu à pied? Voilà. Si vous vivez ici à l'université, probablement tu es venu à pied. So if you live on campus, you probably got here by foot. Est-ce que quelqu'un a pris un bus pour venir? Non. Un taxi? Non. Une moto? No. Has Uber made it to the Bayou region? Do you guys Uber?
Not that I know of.
Maybe it's more Lyft. Anyway, voila. Students who come from abroad, who come to Nicholls, find it difficult that everything is so car-based. Is this true, Marie? Yes. Do you have a car, or do you have a friend with a car?
Like in Germany, we have cars too, but we have a lot of public transportation, which is so good.
It is so good. I know. You know what Americans think happens? I grew up in a very public transportation-y place, but you know what Americans think happen on public transportation?
No.
Crime. Americans who didn't grow up with it think that it's dangerous, which is like the craziest idea because it's like, what could happen? There's a bunch of people. Sorry to laugh at you guys, but yeah, it's not scary taking public transportation. It's just something people do. Okay, voici les verbes. Acheter, amener, changer, dormir. This is a very annoying thing about French. Amener and emmener. One means to bring, one means to take. Amener, emmener. And they are spelled and sound the same, right? I'm not going to test you on that. Espérer, essayer, manger, nager, partager, partir, sortir. Which ones are not ER verbs, which you have now mastered?
The
Dormir,
last two.
sortir.
Dormir and the last two. Très bien. Okay, so we're going to look at a PowerPoint in a second, and then we're going to play the fun quiz game. Do you sort of see on this how it's a hexagon? It's such a French idea. Like, we have perfect balance in our country because au nord-est, il y a une côte. Au sud-est, il y a un autre côté là. Au sud, donc, l'ouest et un nord-ouest. Donc, 6 petites pleins parfaits. So let's look at that in the Google Slides. And I'll show you the hexagon more clearly. And they'll just refer to it. Like if you are going to France, the French sometimes say, oh, je vais, if you're not in France, je vais retourner à l'hexagone. L'hexagone. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Everybody can see the PowerPoint, right? Okay. Donc. So one of the things we do in this chapter, this is sort of like also telling you what's coming up. You are going to have to do a meme, a map, and a bucket list. So it's meme or map and a bucket list. So like you made your little family video in chapter 2 and chapter 3. So these are the memes that others, my previous class made. So it's a cute one. I like it better when students are playing with the language. So, you know, moi, je ne comprends pas. It ain't much, but it's honest work. It's cute. This one is very funny because the word for seal in French is phoque. Yes, it is pronounced phoque. So that was last semester my favorite one. And look at that seal. And seals are my favorite animal. And the word for seal in German is Robin, which is my first name. I'm not pronouncing it exactly right. So I just have a thing for seals. And then this one I thought was kind of cute because it's true when you ask somebody in French, ça va? Oui, ça va. Ça va, ça va. Oui, ça va. Ça va. Ça va, ça va. So that was cute. So you can be thinking about making a meme. If you're not a funny meme kind of person, you can also make a map, and I will show you how to do a map. Ok, donc chapitre 3, la géographie. Donc la France est un hexagone, comme vous voyez. Donc, voici le vocabulaire qu'on vient de voir, les fleuves, les montagnes, les lacs, les océans, les villes. Donc, il y a... France est un pays de petites villes. On a des petites villes en France, comme Lyon et Marseille. Ce sont des assez grandes villes, mais il y a beaucoup de petites villes comme Orléans, Besançon. Vraiment, on est plus petit que des grandes villes. So if you think of a big, huge country like Brazil, there are big cities there. That is not the French way. They have small cities and just one big city. And even Paris isn't that big. It's millions, but it's not like, it's no New York. Okay. Donc, voici les points cardinaux. Donc, on a au nord, à l'est, à l'ouest, au sud, au nord-est, au sud-est, au sud-ouest. So nautical terms, I don't know them, but you know, you can also go au nord-nord-est, au sud-est-est. There's like different ways to say you're going south-southwest. So boaty people know this. Donc, on peut dire aussi au centre, dans l'ouest, dans l'est, sur la côte. Donc, d'autres manières de se situer en France. Alors, nous allons étudier assez quel temps fait-il? Il fait chaud, il fait du brouillard, du soleil, il neige, il pleut, il mouille, il fait du soleil, il y a des nuages. We're going to do numbers because guess what? The whole world uses metric, and what do we use? We use Fahrenheit. So we're going to start to look at that quickly. And so the Fahrenheit numbers go up into the 70s, 80s, 90s. Whereas the Celsius are all the numbers you already know. So we're going to play around with that in a second. And we're not, so that's actually getting ahead of ourselves. So we're not going to go to numbers quite yet. So we're going to learn how to do the conjugation. So if you haven't figured out what it means to conjugate, it's time. What does a verb conjugation mean in English? Just a question in English. What do you do when you conjugate a verb? And people who don't have their cameras on, please put your cameras on so I can see your faces without masks.
You alter the verb to fit the sentence.
You alter the verb to fit the sentence. I mean, yeah, but the verb is controlled by what in French and in English?
By the subject.
By the subject. Okay, so here we have subject. What kind of subjects are je, tu, il, on, nous? Don't let grammar scare you. It's not scary.
First person, second person, third person.
Yep, they're pronoun, subject pronouns that refer to the person. That's why we call them first person, second person, third person. Nous is a really interesting one. So do you know what its person is?
First person
First
plural.
person.
That's it. First person plural. That's weird, huh? First person plural. So in French, as in English, it is the subject pronoun or the subject that controls the verb. In other languages, sometimes the noun is changed. As I mentioned in German, you have to change the noun. So like French grammar is easier than German grammar. You just have to change the verb. Imagine if you start getting into noun changes, and languages can do an infinite number of things. So in German, there's 3 genders. There are languages that have like 30 genders. Wrap your head around that. Yeah. French, there's just 2. English is easy. So we're going to learn to conjugate these, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview and see how you are catching on to the notion of conjugation. Je sors, tu sors. And what is it with the to conjugation? It always ends with what letter?
S.
Voilà. Il, elle, on sort. Nous sortons. Vous
Sortez.
sortez. Et I'm not going to say this one out loud. I'm going to let you guys pronounce this. How do you pronounce that last one?
Sortez.
He soft.
Sort.
Sort. Oh, bonjour, Minou. So, il, elle sort. So let's do dormir, and we're going to do the il, elle again. Il sleep. Think dormitory. How is that one pronounced?
Il dort.
Dorm. Dorm. So you actually do pronounce an il sort, il dorm, the consonant, and there's that muted E, dorm, sorte, il sorte. Okay, moving along. Boom. Won't let me. So these are just the conjugations of regular IR verbs. So when I said we learned regular ER verbs, that means that all regular ER verbs are going to follow that pattern. And this means all regular IR verbs are going to follow this pattern. So if you're a memorization kind of person, you just want to remember SSTONSEZEMNT. If you're not a memorization person, you want to start to understand and use these verbs so that you acquire them, which is actually how language works. Language cannot be memorized. Okay. We're not going to do this right now. We're going to move on to another PowerPoint. The boot verbs I'm saving for later. Those are not regular verbs. When I say a boot verb, it's an irregular verb. So let's talk about quel temps fait-il? Alors, quel temps fait-il? Il fait chaud. Il fait frais. Oh, let me get rid of all those. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. Alors, aujourd'hui, quel temps fait-il? Qu'est-ce que tu dis? Lane, quel temps fait-il aujourd'hui, Lane? This is why I like your cameras on. Quel temps fait-il? Emma, quel temps fait-il?
Je ne sais pas.
Tu ne sais pas. Bonne réponse, je ne sais pas. Très, très bien. Alors, Jovan, quel temps fait-il aujourd'hui? Il fait chaud? Il fait chaud? Ah oui, il fait chaud. OK. Dehors. Mais est-ce qu'il fait très, très, très chaud ou il fait un peu chaud? Un peu, n'est-ce pas? Il fait un peu chaud. Qu'est-ce que tu dis, Alyssa? Quel temps fait-il aujourd'hui?
Il fait du soleil.
Il fait du soleil. Voilà une bonne description. Je suis d'accord. Il fait du soleil aujourd'hui. Il fait beau. Il fait beau. On peut dire, so this is so very French. It makes beautiful. Il fait beau. I like when it's this weather. Il fait du soleil. Il fait frais. Donc, il fait beau. Il fait beau, d'après moi. OK. En octobre, il fait beau en Louisiane. OK. Boop. Okay, so this is why we learn numbers in this chapter, partially because we're gonna start to talk about populations, and we're gonna also start to learn about Celsius versus Fahrenheit. So I'm going to give you the number in Celsius, and you're going to tell me in English, unless you already know your French numbers, what the equivalency is in Fahrenheit. Alors, dans le nord, dans l'Arctique, il fait très, très froid, n'est-ce pas? Il fait moins 29 degrés. Moins 29 degrés. It is so cold up there au nord that we don't have an equivalent. Oops, go back. Go back. Oh, come on. PowerPoint, don't do me like that. Voilà. OK. Au Canada aussi, il fait moins 20 degrés. Au Canada, au nord. Mais ici, à l'est du Canada, il fait 3 degrés. How much is that in Fahrenheit? 3 degrés. You can say it in English or in French.
37.4.
Mm-hmm. So let's try it in French. 37 degrés. And in English, we say point. In French, it's virgule. Virgule. Donc, 37 degrés, virgule 4. Alors, dans l'ouest, en Californie, il fait 19 degrés. Combien en Fahrenheit? En Californie, il fait 19 degrés. Combien en Fahrenheit?
66,2.
Très bien. Alors, 19, 66,2. Très, très bien. 66,2. Bien. Vers New York, il fait 16 degrés. Et ça, c'est combien en Fahrenheit? 16 degrés, c'est combien en Fahrenheit?
60 degrés, virgule 8.
8, très bien. En Floride, il fait 26 degrés. Combien en Fahrenheit? 26.
78,8.
Très bien. OK, on va passer. Alors, Ça, c'est quel continent? On est dans quel continent, là? Est-ce que c'est l'Asie? Est-ce que c'est l'Europe?
L'Afrique.
C'est l'Afrique, voilà. OK, très bien. Et la météo, so I'm going to see if we have any sense of African geography. Half the time, Americans are calling Africa a country. So maybe we can learn a little bit of African geography. Au nord, il fait quelle température en Algérie? Au nord de l'Afrique, quelle est la température en Algérie?
16.
Tu as dit 16? Oui, 16?
16.
16. Oui, okay, c'est bon. So technically that is more Morocco, but you were in the right ballpark. This is Algerie. And Algerie was France for over 100 years. So it's this crazy history. Algerie was just France. It would be like if we gave Mexico back, or Texas back to Mexico, even though it's been American for 100 some years. So that's Algeria. Algeria has a really interesting relationship today with France. They're pissed. Alors, au Sénégal, quel temps fait-il au Sénégal? Quelle est la température au Sénégal? Alors, voici Sénégal, ici. Alors, quelle est la température au Sénégal?
20.
9,8.
Oop. Oh, why are you doing this? Voilà. Voilà. Alors, donc, en Fahrenheit, ça fait 69 degrés, 8. Très bien. En Égypte, quelle est la température en Égypte? En Fahrenheit.
16.
16 en Celsius, oui. Et en Fahrenheit, 60,8. Okay, on est en Europe. Let's see if you know your European geography a little bit better than African. Quelle est la température en Fahrenheit en Grande-Bretagne? Quelle est la température Fahrenheit en Grande-Bretagne?
39,2.
39,2. Et quelle est la température en Espagne, en Celsius? En Celsius.
9 Celsius.
11.
11 degrés. Finally, we got Marie. That's the first time she's been wrong. Donc, 11 degrés en Espagne, 9 degrés en France. Okay, we're going to go to the Kahoot game with some vocabulary. So let me see here. How do I start it? So do me a favor this time and do not put your real names up. Just put a makeup name. I don't want to know who wins. It influences the way I think about you. So make up a name and we're going to play. Taking a second to load. Come on, Kahoot. Do your thing. COVID-19. Oh, the Chap. Everybody there? Podcast. Meet One, two, trois, quatre. Okay, we're gonna get started. Okay. Citoyen Saint-Just, slime mold. Très bien. Okay. Alors, ça a été un peu plus difficile. La Louisiane est à l'ouest du Mississippi. But this is not. Okay. La bonne réponse au sud-est de l'Angleterre. Donc, Angleterre est au nord-ouest de la France. You gave it l'ouest. That's kind of right too. It's a tiny bit west, but it's mostly sud. Okay. Okay. And that wasn't even a word that I taught you, but I guess because it's the same. Oh, montagne. Très bien. Bien, bien. Wow, I was sure that everybody would get it wrong. I'm gonna have to ask you guys how you knew that. Wait, a bunch of you said false?
Well, before the picture showed up, we thought you were talking about the weather today.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's a hard one. So pat yourself on the back if you got that one. Ça mouille is it rains. Il pleut on Louisiane. Okay. Kind of annoying, but anyway, on va commencer à regarder un peu le chapitre. Ok, donc voilà les différentes le vocabulaire pour la géographie. Alors, qu'est-ce que c'est les Alpes? C'est un fleuve, des montagnes, une région ou une ville?
Des montagnes.
Des montagnes, très, très bien. Oh, l'Alsace. Qu'est-ce que c'est l'Alsace? C'est un fleuve, des montagnes, une région, une ville.
Une
Une
ville.
région.
Une région, très bien. Et l'Alsace, c'est intéressant parce que parfois l'Alsace est allemand, parfois l'Alsace est la France. À ce moment, ce n'est pas en Allemagne, c'est en France. It changes every few years. And they do speak a kind of German called Alsatian. How did you guys know that that was Quebec City, La Ville de Québec?
I recognize the building in the background.
Yeah, that's the Chateau Frontenac. So.
Lucky guess.
Lucky guess. Nice job. La Normandie. Alors, qu'est-ce que c'est?
Une région.
Une région, très bien. Nice. Nice, qu'est-ce que c'est Nice?
Une ville.
Une ville. So there's a really funny meme about Nice, and I hope I put it on Moodle. We'll see in a sec. La Loire. Qu'est-ce que c'est la Loire?
Un fleuve.
Un fleuve, très bien. Strasbourg.
Une ville.
Une ville où on y parle allemand. La Provence.
Une région.
Une région. La Seine.
Un fleuve.
Un fleuve. Voilà. Okay, so let's look at Moodle really quickly so you can start to think about whether you're going to do a meme and be original with your memes. Don't just go online and say, I'm going to Google French meme. That's kind of not the point. So this is the region that's called La Provence, and La Provence is famous for lavender. And here we are, chapter 3, Vacances en France. Okay, so there's the Nice meme. I did stick it up there. So people. I don't know if you can read it. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Boop. Come back. Nice people, not nice people. So do you get it? Because it's a city in France. This is a meme that somebody turned in, which was not original. They got it online, but it's very cute. So all of these are pronounced the same way, which is to say, anyone want to try?
A.
A. So A, which is why we say French is difficult. And finally, this is a bit of a meme. This is how, so we're going to do this on Wednesday. This is how France counts. So everything's normal up until 69. And then we say 60-10. So if you don't know why this is funny, we'll figure it out on Wednesday. Other languages stare at France like, what's up with your 60-10? France stares back. 60-11, 60-12, 60-13, 60-16, 60-10-7. Other languages shutting eyes. French, 60-10-8, 60-10-9. Other languages, French, 420s, et cetera, et cetera. So we will learn our numbers on Wednesday and get ready for 420s. And I'll tell you why. So, or you can Google it. Why is France counting differently from every other Indo-European language almost? All right, any questions? Okay, see you guys. Oh, yes, what you got, Alyssa?
On Moodle, there was a notification that there's some vocabulary on context thing due tonight. Is that due, or is that a mistake?
Let me see. Is it? It's got to be a mistake. I don't make you turn those in. You know what that's from? Sorry. Yes, that is a mistake. So ignore it. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Anything else? Okay. See you guys. Au revoir. À la prochaine.